Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Samira Tilley, Marketing Manager at Assemble Systems. Our webinar today will cover how Lydig Construction uses Assemble and BIM to deliver quality educational facilities. Now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Kelly, Director of Partnerships at Assemble. Go ahead, Tim.
Thanks, Samira. I appreciate that. So today we're going to run through a couple of quick introductions of Assemble Systems for those of you unfamiliar, as well as Lydig Construction. And then we're going to dive into 3 different case studies, and Clark's going to take you all through various uses of BIM and how Assemble fit into that process. So to start, I'm Tim Kelly, Director of Partnerships at Assemble Systems. I actually come from the construction industry. I worked for a general contractor that actually specializes in education facilities, K through 12 and higher ed specifically. I spent a number of years dealing with K-12 schools doing coordination and quantity takeoff and various activities in both pre-construction and in construction. And then I shifted my time from education to more specifically aviation. Kind of today's topic and what Clark's going to talk a bit about, I've got experience there as well, so I hope Clark and I can have a bit of a dialogue about some of the projects and issues that they see and what they deal with in the Northwest, as well as what I experienced here in Houston, Texas. So kind of round it out and look at it from some different perspectives. Clark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Clark Morgan with Lydig Construction. We're based here in Bellevue, Seattle area. And I've been working in BIM and various BBC roles for the past 10 years. And, my passion is really just in leveraging new technologies and rolling that out company-wide and just embracing some of the best tools that are out there.
So a little bit about Assemble, just for those of you guys that are new to Assemble or just checking us out today. We are a web-based model data management platform. We consider ourselves a system of engagement, and what we mean by that is we actually leverage the model itself, BIM, to organize and access data or information out of the model. And we allow our users to connect to other systems, bring data in, or take data out. What we focus on is simplifying data management. So if I'm in any role within a general contractor, whether it's an estimating or project management or whatever that amounts to, I can incorporate various components of my project or pieces of information like bid packages or work packages or cost code information from various systems into one environment that allows me to quickly query and organize that data. So specifically, I have the ability to, instead of opening up an entire model file, I can just look at isolated piece of information. So if I'm interested in, looking at my one specific trade contractor in a specific area over a specific period of time, I can isolate that and just load the relevant information instead of opening up large files or large data sets. I can dial in directly to what I want to see when I need that. So with that, we have about 1,200 projects through our system, and we have a little over 10,000 users using Assemble today. And those are across about 1,000 offices in primarily the U.S., but in countries around the world. So Clark, if you can give us a high-level intro over Lydig and what you guys do.
Yeah, so Lydig, we've been around since 1956. We look at about 350 million in volume each year. And we've got 3 offices. So I'm based here in Bellevue. Our main office is Spokane, and then we have another office in the Tri-Cities area of Washington. So on the next slide, kind of talks about some of our projects that we work on. So I'm going to be speaking mostly about educational projects, but we specialize in historical renovations. We do a lot of work on college campuses, university campuses. We also we do a lot of justice projects here in the Northwest. And then we do various amounts of healthcare, government projects, research labs, and then your typical commercial corporate type of projects. So yeah, we've been around about 60 years. We've been really focused on building information modeling and implementing, various technologies really, in the past for a good 10 years. We've had a pretty good investment in it and a lot of support from our leadership. I'm going to talk some more about challenges that we have on educational projects. What we encounter in schools really is, student and faculty safety when you're on an occupied project. In today's market, we have varying subcontractor proficiencies, which is starting to, affect each project in different ways. So trying to find ways to utilize technology to help solve that and mitigate that challenge. Obviously, the tight labor market, I think that's just across the country, especially here in the Northwest. And then the project delivery methods. Most educational projects tend to be a public client, and so there's various contracting types here in the Northwest, and they all involve their own challenges, stakeholders, and different ways to communicate. So again, utilizing technologies can be applied in different ways to help mitigate that challenge. And then, of course, there's community involvement. Schools obviously are the highlight of a community, so you get there's a lot of people interested in the project, and a lot of people like to voice their concerns about the projects as well. Another challenge that tends to be on the school projects is sustainability metrics, tracking that.
Yeah, I did one more. I kind of, as you were talking there, I thought specifically about and delivery methods, but I think something very specific to school construction is that there is always a very hard deadline. You often work right up until a school is opening and maybe 1,000 students are coming onto the campus right up to that deadline. It's not exactly like you can miss and be successful in the education market.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And the other thing is once they've occupied the school, sometimes there's still work going on, punch lists and
right.
that kind of thing. So again, that's where various technologies can help with that challenge.
Absolutely.
So yeah, one of the big projects that we're working on right now that we're really passionate about is Lincoln High School here in Seattle. It's a 200,000 square foot historic renovation built in 1906. It is going to be renovated to be a STEM-based high school. It's about a $65 million renovation, mostly just, gutting the whole building and throwing in all new systems, and then adding an additional wing as well. So yeah, the project was built in 1906, had additions in 1914, 1930, and 1969. So along with that comes various as-builts of various levels of detail, which has definitely presented a challenge on this project. And this particular one uses a state contracting method we call GCCM. I think in other states they call it CMGC. And then on this particular one, we have what is called an MCCM, which is a mechanical contractor who's brought on board during design to help provide input during the design process. So yeah, lots of stakeholders involved during design. Obviously, the architect was then modeling everything in Revit, so we used Assemble quite extensively during design and are continuing that during construction. So next,
with that contract structure, Clark, can you kind of explain a little bit more on how early you guys got involved? What phase of design were you guys stepping in to do CM work?
Yep. So we're usually brought in right after the SD phase. So kind of the first task that we're presented with is providing a budget based on the SD document.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's one of the great things about utilizing Assemble was, being able to, get signed on, get the model from the architect, and almost immediately start, throwing some numbers their way, start quantifying stuff and communicating.
Okay, great. And then another thing, I just kind of from familiarity, this CM at risk is sort of a contract structure that I would equate this to. Are you guys immediately from that point you're engaged working towards a GMP, and that's kind of typical for that CM process, or is this different based on the Washington kind of delivery method?
It's very similar. I think we just call it something different here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone kind of understanding that contract structure, and it's similar to what people are familiar with.
Exactly. And then obviously the MCCM portion of that is bringing on a mechanical contractor to help, work towards those budgets on the mechanical side.
Awesome.
So yeah, kind of one of the first and one of the biggest challenges on this school is the phasing. Not only phasing during construction, but the phasing of the demolition. So you've got, some of there's different wings. You're going to hear me refer to the north, central, and south. But basically, we go in, we demoed the north wing first, came into the central wing, started demoing, floor. We started on floor 2, then jump up to floor 4. So, through all of this, the construction team is trying to quantify elements by level and by wings, which definitely presents a challenge in paper drawings. So having all of this data in the BIM model or in our Revit model, pulling that into Assemble, and then being able to break Assemble down by not only the different wings, but by levels, helping the estimators be able to visualize what's being demoed, what's staying, what's new, and kind of fitting it all together. That has been definitely one of the biggest benefits of Assemble on this particular project. And I think this was our pilot project with Assemble, and due to the ability to filter through phasing and wings like I described, I think that really was kind of the selling point to our team and how powerful Assemble is. So obviously being able to filter our elements by phase definitely improved takeoff time and efficiency of the pre-construction team. But another benefit that I was able to share with our subcontractors is pulling some of that data out and some of that phasing out using viewpoints, Navisworks viewpoints. So taking those out of Assemble, shooting that in an email over to all of our subcontractors, they were able to then break their models down using some of this filtering that I'd set up.
And just to jump in real quick, Clark, so everyone is aware of what Clark is talking about. Within Assemble, we have the ability to take the grouping and organization you've done with your data, your model components, and share that out as a search set into Navisworks. So the hierarchy you set with, and Clark's mentioning zones or areas and the phasing, you can recreate that same structure within Navisworks for those trades. So everyone understands that there's an export out of Assemble that allows you to do that.
Yeah, and also on that topic, I think the first couple of iterations of the model from the design team did not have the project broken out by zone. So using Assemble, I was able to go in and apply zone properties to that and then export that out. And from there on out, the design team utilized or they were able to incorporate that into their Revit model. So, at a certain point during the design, we had everything broken up by zone, but thanks to Assemble, early on, we were able to do that ourselves and share that with the rest of our team members. One of the benefits that our team really enjoyed was the ability to communicate variances. Most school districts, they'll hire an independent cost estimator. So we're constantly going through these communication phases when we provide a budget and they have one that we need to reconcile with. Whenever there was a bust in numbers, whether on our side or their side, we were able to go into the model, visualize what was there, and be able to show, to the entire team and clarify, what those variances are. So we do that multiple times between, SD and CD. So utilizing Assemble for that definitely saved a lot of time in this time-intensive process. The other difficulty is this process involves lots of different disciplines. So you have, owners, reps, different design team members, subcontractors that we're soliciting numbers from. Being able to use Assemble in that process has been a huge value. And then obviously the variance aspect of that has enhanced the whole process. So, and again, that process is really based on communication and visualization, which really is what Assemble does with the BIM model.
That's perfect. And from my experience in this, and while I was actually using Assemble from the contractor standpoint, same thing in the communication that was key. And what was great that we did is typically as the design team would send an update, they'd say, hey, here's what we're working on. This past week we've been moving forward on grade beams and kind of firming up the design there, getting et cetera, to kind of talk about a bit about what they're working on, and we're able to look at the variance and see exactly what you're seeing on, and Clark's screenshot here is you've got some grade beams in green that were added that are new to this particular version, and then in magenta there you've got the ones that have changed in size, so they've either got longer, shorter, et cetera. And getting that roll up of a quantity for us always allowed for, at that, the status point of actually updating the budget, it was a much faster process to kind of get to reconcile and understand what we're getting back from the subs, because we've been communicating all along.
Another aspect of school projects is sustainability metrics. So depending on the design model you're getting, or whether you've already obtained the design model and you're now, tracking that model for construction, you can pull the data out using Assemble. It's really easy to go in, start pulling some data out, and start tracking these numbers. Obviously, not the entire sustainability process is there's different metrics and different numbers you're pulling out, but for material tracking, quantity takeoff of materials, we found that our project teams have embraced Assemble for certain scopes of work to start tracking some of these materials, and it's something that we're just starting to roll out and starting to explore. I think other companies have been exploring that for a while within Assemble. Definitely something we are embracing.
That's great. And now with that, are you guys exporting spreadsheet directly from the interface here in Assemble, or are you guys using the plugin we have that allows you to pull data from Assemble's database into your spreadsheet?
So that's a good question. We're not using the Assemble plugin yet. I think right now, everyone's kind of becoming familiar with this, and so they're going into Assemble. They're either grabbing the numbers manually within the interface or exporting spreadsheets.
That's great.
I definitely see where the plugin would be beneficial, especially since it tends to be the same format and the same score tracking that's used through many of these different metrics. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see kind of expanding the ability to map values in, and then since this is a fairly standard looking spreadsheet, you could point to a different project and map those same pieces in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So really quick, you mentioned the adhering to WSSP or LEED. Can you explain, just so everyone's kind of understanding, that WSSP is your local sustainability? Anything else to add?
Yeah. So I forgot the exact terminology, but WSP is Washington State School Performance, I believe.
Great.
And so that's the minimum standard. Then some schools may go for a LEED standard, whether they become certified or just sign it off.
That's fantastic. And I know we're going to be moving on to the second case study, but can you talk a little bit about the state of this project, where you guys are, kind of date and time frame for this particular job?
Yeah, so this particular job, we are, let's see, so I was out there last week. We are starting to rough in MEP. So we're, let's see, we started in December, and I believe we will be wrapping up construction by the end of this year. So it's a pretty rapid project. So yeah, it's we're probably a good year and a half into this project being an Assemble, though, because there was I think this particular project actually had 12 months in pre-construction, so we spent a lot of time with the design team. Obviously, it's a complex project, historic renovation. It was a landmark building as well, so you got to preserve certain elements. Definitely presented challenges in the schedule.
Personally, I love being, in my past, being a part of a project that you're in the model for that much time ahead of construction. And then, like you said, you were out on the job site last week, walking through the facility after you seemingly have been in it for, 18 months is a pretty cool feeling. All right. You want to dive into case study number 2?
Let's see. About the same time that we were in pre-construction on Lincoln High School, we were awarded an elementary school and middle school at the same time. That pre-construction started pretty quickly. So this second case study is a project that we pulled into our pre-construction team's workload at the same time. Utilized a single GCCM contract on the 2 different schools. We hired a MC and an EC, so EC is the electrical contractor, to get involved during design. So we had the same mechanical and electrical on both projects. However, we had 2 different design teams. So what's fascinating is you get 2 different sets of documents to 2 different levels of detail that we're working through, and then one step further, then 2 different models authored by 2 different companies. So that definitely presented some challenges, but the 2 projects together were about an $80 million contract. Our project teams, obviously during pre-construction, they were involved inside of Assemble. So by pulling our project engineer, project managers into Assemble, they were able to start wrapping their hands around the projects, these 2 projects, and being able to visualize, quantify, but then use Assemble to create consistency between our 2 different sets of numbers from 2 different design teams. Definitely presented some challenges in lining elements up, different naming conventions, that kind of stuff. So we did end up setting up 2 different sets of templates for that team. So during pre-construction, what we were able to do was we enabled the Procore integration so that the project engineers, project managers could start viewing the data within Procore, but then also sharing it with anyone else that was within our Procore project during pre-construction. on this particular slide, I'm kind of talking about how Assemble has helped us enable our project teams with VDC and BIM. So in this particular project, our project engineers are able to extract the BIM data, which saves me a lot of time. So regularly, I am saving out Navisworks models, sharing that with teams, or I should say before Assemble, creating lots of Navisworks models, sharing that with the teams, updating the models, all of that stuff. Well, now, when a Revit model is shared with me, I push to Procore, or I push to Assemble. That Assemble view is updated and accessible to everyone, not only within Procore, but anyone that's natively going into the Assemble interface.
Just so everyone is caught up or aware of this, our integration with Procore, it means that when Clark updates that data inside Assemble, it's automatically updated here. This is a live link back to Assemble, and so for those of you familiar, that's we're within Procore in this, and you actually have a tab specifically for Assemble once this integration is turned on. And you have the ability to access the 3D and the data directly within that Procore interface. That's available both on web and on mobile. So if you have guys that are accessing this information on their iPad or iPhone, you can jump right into the same view.
Yeah, and the benefit there is we can start breaking the model down by different scopes, and so project engineers, project managers are then utilizing those scope-specific views that are in Procore, and they're using that to clarify bid packages and scope packages with their subcontractors. And that's been a big benefit in a really competitive construction market, where sometimes we're not getting numbers to the last minute. Sometimes our subcontractors are telling us they don't have time to look at drawings. So now by enabling this and giving them access to a view in Procore, we find that people are a little more willing to take a look at this project and see what it's about, because now they don't have to sift through the drawings. They now have a model that's a visual representation that then clarifies what's in the drawings.
That's awesome. And question, do you have subcontractors or your project engineers engaging with you more about the model data they're seeing? In the past, you said you were sending Navisworks files, and you really don't know if they're utilizing them, or if they are, you may not have direct feedback. But when you're presenting the data through something that they're already in every day, like Procore, do you see a change in how their interaction is with you, and asking different questions about the model and what's there?
Yeah, certainly, because it's no longer just a static, Navisworks model. Now all of these elements have data associated with them, and yeah, I'm definitely finding project managers and project engineers, they click on a wall and they start seeing all this data from, contained in that wall element, and start asking, what else can we get? How can we quantify all of a particular element? Their brains start working, and they start pushing me, start making me think more about how to utilize it. So
that's perfect. That's good. I love the collaboration that happens, and I'll talk a little bit more later about some of the things that we want to do around collaboration, but I love that dialogue that starts happening when you are starting to share information broken down the way they expect to see it, and then kind of what follows along.
So that's kind of how we've enabled our project teams. Next project, again, this third one, with two separate schools under a single GCCM contract. This one only had one design team, which is great. All of our views and templates are able to transfer between the two different projects. And I think the big challenge on this third project is really kind of the bandwidth of our staff. So now we're at a point where we had all of these projects I'm talking about were in pre-construction at some phase. And so it's like a really fast ramp up for our pre-construction team to start giving deliverables and working with the teams and provide a quality level of service. So one thing we definitely praised Assemble for was increasing our staff's bandwidth. So, without having to add more people, we're now able to do more takeoffs in a shorter amount of time. And at the same time, also pull in people who might not have had the same experience in construction and pre-construction and show them how to start extracting data out of the model and provide workload or added bandwidth to that team. So yeah, so that was definitely a challenge. I mean, we're looking at about $150 million worth of work that was all happening at once. So yeah, Assemble definitely made that smoother. And then obviously just, again, we're beating the phones trying to get subcontractors to take a look at our projects, kind of increase the bandwidth of our subcontractor teams as well. And obviously that's through the ability to just quickly generate 3D view and shoot that off, whether it's just a screenshot or actually sharing it in Procore. We definitely have used it to varying levels of difficulty, and I think it all provides an added service to pre-construction.
So with the team and your added bandwidth, obviously you're talking kind of about all of these projects happening simultaneously, each having their own deliverables and what you guys are responsible for. Are you talking about, and I'm sure there's different pieces of this, but you're able to offload some of the sharing of information to then project engineers and other people or other team members are able to get the data that they need more readily? Is that what I'm hearing, that you've now got others quickly able to see and understand and then kind of extend on the collaboration?
Exactly. Exactly. I think the ability to have unlimited users on a project is a benefit, because most of our 2D takeoff tools were limited by how many licenses we have. So I think there was one point where we had more people working on takeoffs than we had licenses for our 2D takeoff tools. So being able to add more people, and you can kind of have people working on each simultaneously. So that's an added benefit. But then I kind of touch on this in the next slide, but it's also bringing in some of our summer interns who normally would struggle or take some mentorship time from the pre-construction team. Now they're able to get into the model and quickly generate some of these simple takeoffs without having to learn the takeoff tool or how to read drawings. They now have it in the model, and it's a lot easier for them to figure out and extract data. So Assemble's kind of become in some ways a career development tool, where part of our development process is interns and first-year project engineers spend a couple of months in pre-construction. So we definitely see Assemble as a visual tool that helps us mentor some of the less experienced and new interns in the company, because now they get to relate the 2D sheets with the model elements and then start thinking about some of the data that's contained in these model elements and start learning from that. I think they find it a lot more fun, obviously, to view a model and start playing with the tools, especially in this new generation. I think coming to work and having your first experience of your new job be sifting through 500-page document set is a bit tedious, and so putting them in front of this tool not only is a way to attract new talent, but also to keep current talent interested in the process.
I think industry-wide, people are definitely interested, whether they've been in their career for a while or just coming up, interested in BIM and what's going on with what we kind of deem as virtual design and construction. They want to know what's going on with it, and a lot of them don't have the time or the expertise to be in, Revit or other really complicated products full time.
Mhm.
What I love about and kind of what we've really focused on at Assemble is to try and keep it simple. And as you mentioned, our pricing model to get away from the per user seat, so you can invite people that are interested and excited to learn about BIM and to experience it. As you were talking there, one of the things too that I think is something that we are striving to do as we look to the future is educate the next generation of users or of individuals in our industry. We're in now today about 40 different universities that are really specialized and have a plan around construction management. So we're in about 40 of those programs, which is awesome to see people coming out of school saying, hey, I want to get engaged with this in my company. So I hope you guys see some of that as you're bringing on some of the interns or some of the new hires.
Keeping the current generation engaged, but getting the new generation more involved and really wrapping their heads into the project has been a benefit of Assemble. So yeah, and then again, our pre-construction team varies day to day, or not day to day, but week to week in terms of manpower. Sometimes we have project managers that are out on a project that come in, but I'll tell you, in today's labor market, all of our PMs that would normally rotate through the pre-construction department they're all out running work. So
That's right.
Definitely a benefit of Assemble. So that's what I have.
Awesome. And just to put a highlighter on it too, you've got the last bullet point there is to incorporate the context of data. Just to reiterate that our focus is around the data, is to actually get into the model and get the information out that you need to simplify the process of incorporating, or what we call conditioning, the model and adding your own data to it. We all know that designers, they build models for the purpose of producing design documents and drawings, and oftentimes they obviously aren't going to have your cost code structure or your bid package organization or how you scope projects. So we want to simplify the process of how, as a contractor, you're able to add your type of conditioning that matters, and use that data to better break it down and to share with Procore, I square foot, or wherever else this information goes. Awesome. Well, Clark, definitely want to say thanks from the Assemble team and from all of those listening today for your time.